It looks like we've got a good number on the call, so let's get started. My name is Amanda Plisco. I'm on the marketing team here at JM&A, and I'll be your moderator for this office hours. Before we get started, I want to take just 2 minutes to go over a couple of things, and then we'll dive in. First of all, thank you for being part of the JM&A Insider community. In a very short time, we've grown to over 600 members, and we're really excited to have you here today participating in our second live office hours event. So thank you very much for being here. JM&A Insider is all about providing you with anytime access to expert level content that's valuable to your success. We've added a lot of content since we started, and there's plenty more coming soon. So look out from your emails from our team or on the Insider platform itself to see what's new. We've got a great presentation lined up today. And first and foremost, this is all about getting your questions answered and for you to learn. So we encourage you to type your questions into the chat box below, and we'll get to them in the next hour or so as we pause for questions. And as an added bonus, our Dealer Talent Services team has extended an offer to everyone on the call today who participates to receive a free consult. So look out for that link to register during the presentation in a few minutes. So as we know, talent management and addressing turnover is one of the most pressing challenges facing dealers now. And today we're going to get a look at some of the core factors that are affecting engagement, how to optimize your talent for job fit, team dynamics, management, culture, as well as some actionable ways to help maximize your profitability while retaining your top performers. So let's get to it. As I said, my name is Amanda Plisco. I have been with JM&A Group for a little over a year, and with our parent company, JM Family, for about 7 years before that. I work on our marketing team focused on communications, and I partner with associates like Chris and Kevin, who are with us today, to create content, tell our stories, and of course, to serve you, our customers. So joining me today, as I said, is Chris May, Director of JM&A's Performance Development Center, as well as Kevin Hull, Manager of Dealer Talent Services. Guys, would you like to introduce yourselves and get started?
Absolutely. Thanks, Amanda. So my name is Chris May, Director of the Performance Development Center at JM&A Group. I've been with the organization for close to 9 years, first 4 in retail, 3 years in sales strategy, really focusing on major trends in automotive retail, and the last 2 years overseeing many of our training and consulting offerings.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris and Amanda. My name is Kevin Hall. I'm the Manager of Dealer Talent Services. I'm new to the JM&A family. I've been with the organization now for about 9 months. Prior to joining JM&A, I worked in an entrepreneurial environment in the talent consulting and executive search business for about 13 years.
Jumping in, a little background on today's conversation. Regardless of your dealership size, location, your evolutionary beliefs, mastering talent management practices is the key to unlocking the true potential of your organization. Through a lot of my conversations over the last few years, whether it was constantly retraining associates, it's how do I make more money, I need to install new retail technology, almost every challenge that a dealer faces today to some degree is a talent problem. If you're a dealer looking to maximize profits today, I recommend that everyone go and do the math on the cost of turnover. The biggest expense on your financial statement as a dealership is people. Estimates range from 10K to upwards of 50,000 per every time you want to hire somebody. That doesn't include the cost of the empty chair. It doesn't include the cost of lost productivity, of getting new associates up to speed. So there's a lot of costs in your recruiting practices that you could be saving in today's world. The second reason actually was accelerated during the pandemic. As a dealership, we need to be more efficient and productive with those people that we currently do employ. The old adage in dealerships is that if I need to sell 20 more cars a month, then I just need to go ahead and hire 2 more salespeople rather than finding ways to do more with less. And lastly, especially through my old role, there's a lot of chatter and speculation around what the dealership of the future looks like. And regardless of what your beliefs are, you are able to future-proof your dealership by fine-tuning your people strategy. So this is a very big problem that we want to go out and tackle. But before we go in solving the problem, we want to make sure that we dove deep into the root causes to make sure that we were targeting the right activities. So Kevin, why don't you walk them through some of the research that we've done over the last 6 months?
For sure. As Chris mentioned, over the past 6 months, we've done a lot of research, gathered a lot of data, spoke with a lot of our dealer partners. And the numbers on the slides probably aren't surprising to anybody on the call. But what's interesting is there's a tremendous amount of turnover that's taking place within the dealership. If we look specifically in the sales department, 72% of your sales associates turn over on an annual basis, right? But what Chris and I found super interesting and probably more painful than the 72% is across the dealership. In the first 90 days of an associate's time at your dealership, 39% of those individuals are leaving. So if you do the math, for every one seat you're trying to fill, you're potentially going through 4 people across a number of different departments in your organization. And as Chris mentioned, the cost of that is exponential. It's a huge cost. And what's actually even more interesting to that point is over the last decade, the automotive industry has had a boom, right? We've seen record SARs. We've seen a lot of growth in our industry. And like most problems that we have, right, we throw money at it. And people have been a problem. And so we've thrown a ton of money at trying to solve the people problem. And instead of hiring 2 right people, we'll hire 10 to hopefully keep 2. And what that's done, it's actually really tarnished the reputation of the auto industry. And if you notice that 1.25% of job seekers would actually consider working in the automotive space. And that's going to be a huge thing that, we need to address, especially with the future of automotive. And as we need to attract new skills to the industry, we have to be able to make the industry attractive, and people's the first place to do that. And so what Chris and I realized through this process as we dug deeper, where there's 4 forces that are really driving disengagement across the dealership. And those are job fit, manager style and relationship, team and culture dynamics. And through our research and our conversations, what Chris and I were surprised by is these same four forces that drive disengagement also are the same forces that drive engagement of employees. So we kind of graphed and plotted the current automobile life cycle of an associate. And if you notice, there's 2 lines here. There's the have to employee line and the want to employee line. And if you think about these have to employees, these are individuals that show up late, leave early. The mentality is that grass is always greener on the other side. And our dealers have taken the approach with these individuals of, hey, it's sink or swim. If they can make it, we'll keep them. If they can't make it, I'm not going to invest any time into them. And what's happened is we've seen a tremendous amount of turnover at the dealership, right? A tremendous amount of individuals that have left the industry or that dealership. But what the dealers don't recognize is the impact that these have to employees are having on the want to employees. And we'll touch on that in a little bit as well. These want to employees, these are the individuals that are on the green line and on this upwards trajectory. And what you'll notice is those 4 forces are driving their productivity down once they hit a peak. And we've all seen this, right? The car salesman or woman that starts and sells 10 cars the first month, 12 cars their second month, 10 cars the third month. And then they have an 8, a 4, a 2, and then they're out the door, right? And so something's happening within the dealership that's causing this. And what we've identified is it's this opportunity zone. And what Chris and I are very focused on supporting our dealers with is understanding how can we help our dealers at scale, right? Really drive engagement across these 4 factors. And so by leveraging people data and science, as well as a talent optimization framework, we believe that we're going to be able to support our dealers to maintain this upwards trajectory of engagement on high performers and high potential individuals. You'll notice that we still do have this red line. Turnover is going to happen, and turnover isn't a bad thing, right? There's sometimes we need to get people out of our dealership, right, that are bringing people down. What's bad about turnover is if we don't control it, right, or if we're caught by surprise by it. And unfortunately, in today's world, more often than not, our dealers are caught by surprise by the turnover. And we want to prepare our dealers to not be surprised, but control who and how the individuals that work in their dealership. And I know we have a question that we want to put up to you guys as a poll to what you guys are seeing. So I'll toss it over to Amanda.
Sure, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, so now that we've sort of introduced the four forces and we've dipped our toes in the water a little bit, and we understand a little bit how they might affect your teams, we wanted to ask you, which of these four factors would impact your dealership or impact your business the most? So you should see a poll popping up on your screen. If you could just select the number one factor, and I'll leave this up for just a few minutes or moments, not minutes, while everybody answers. And I'll give it maybe another 30 seconds or so. Looks like we've got almost everybody answered.
I feel like there should be that Jeopardy clock going.
Right. All right, I think that's good. We've got, and I will share the results with everybody. Looks like we've got a pretty good split, but culture's taken the lead, followed by manager and associate rapport. So thank you all for sharing that feedback with us. And I think that now is a great time to take a deeper dive and really start looking more into each of those four factors. And of course, remember, since we know what your pain points are, remember to ask questions in the chat specific to those needs, and we can get to them throughout the presentation.
Excellent, thanks.
So what we wanted to do is really create a framework. We want to create a process, bring organization and structure about how we go ahead and solve this challenge. Today, we want to walk everyone through the basics of how you hire the right employees, how you inspire your management staff, and ultimately, how do we create a culture that's going to set your organization apart from the rest. There are two specific things that I want to call out before diving in today. Is we really wanted to introduce data into the decision-making process. Today, hiring is highly driven by gut decisions. You know, somebody has a pretty good resume, their personality seems solid, let's pull the trigger and let's just see if it works out. We like to call that it's really mixing art and science together, and how those two things complement each other well to make the most informed decision possible. So data usage is one. The second is, you know, we're highly sensitive and we recognize that life of leadership inside of a dealership is extremely difficult. Talent management, as I like to say, it's always important, but it's rarely ever urgent. You know, we live in 30-day windows where we have competing priorities. So for this program to work for a dealer, it must be simple. It must be able to enable the right activities, but it can't be a burden. So, you know, while it's not something that you can outsource to somebody completely, it makes a lot of sense to have someone who is going to be able to do a lot of the legwork for you, that be hands-on and help you through the process, making sure that the right activities are happening at the right time. So, so data and our approach to really being helpful enablers are really two things that we wanted to call out in this particular program. So Kevin, why don't you walk them through some of the specifics on the first bucket there?
Yeah. And so if you think about the first bucket, which is job fit, it's important to understand that all of these aspects directly tie to culture, right? Which is important to understand. And one of the root causes of disengagement is the engagement of an employee, is their ability to be challenged, supported, and learn, right, in the role. And so when you think about job fit, it's very rare that a dealer or any organization outside of automotive as well would look at business strategy, their objectives, their targets, what they're trying to achieve, and then have a separate conversation around, do we have the right process? Do we have the right people? Do we have the right talent strategy to achieve these results, right? So that's the biggest disconnect that we've seen around disengagement, is we could have the best process and the best strategy, but if we don't have the right skills or tasks aligned to deliver on those results, we're going to have friction, right? And that friction could be from the manager expecting their employees to do something, or the employees to expecting that their manager to do something. It's this disconnect around communication. So we really believe that to really define what you need out of your people, you have to align your business strategies with your people strategies. Once you do this, you then need to gain agreement, right? So one of the biggest disconnects is, hey, I need us to deliver 300 cars this month, go and execute, right? There's never really agreement around, well, what's the best way to go about getting 300 cars this month? Or the top executives know how they're going to do it, but it's not trickled down into the management team, which isn't trickled down into the employment. And so what we really need to do is get everyone involved in the decision of what is the actual task associated that we need to deliver as an organization, and make sure that everybody in the organization understands that goal. Once we've done all of this, once we've aligned, defined, and then gained agreement, we then need to measure fit, right? To Chris's point, it's the combination of art and science. If we're just using gut in deciding who should do a certain job, we're going to be challenged. The probability of success is going to be low. If we just use science, it's not going to work either. We have to marry the two, right? We have to really combine the two to drive the match and the fit. And a prime example of that is right here. And so you'll notice that this is a chart, and the orange line is your traditional F&I office, and then the purple line is your virtual F&I. And over the past 40 plus years, JM&A has been the leader in driving performance and profitability for our dealer partners in the F&I space. And so we have a tremendous amount of process, a tremendous amount of information and data, not only from performance, but also people, on what is the right F&I person, what is the right F&I process. And what you'll notice, the traditional setting, this orange line, those individuals are highly independent. They like to be in control. They're task-oriented. They also are quick to connect with customers. They build relationships quickly. And they're also careful with rules, because a big part of their compensation is tied to compliance. And so when you think about that versus the virtual setting, you would think, in theory, that they're basically the same thing. But based off of the 2.5+ years that we've done in virtual through our test, and now delivering over 6,600 virtual deals, what we've noticed, again, leveraging people data and performance data, is that actually we see individuals that deliver higher PVRs in the virtual setting are more collaborative and people-oriented.
And if you think about it, it makes a ton of sense, right? So traditional F&I managers, I like to say, they have the home field advantage. It's their office, it's their desk, it's on their turf, so they can be more assertive, they can be more driving to really deliver the results that you're looking for. And in virtual, that environment all changes. So you're looking at different skill sets, different traits that are going to make people, much better at delivering the results that you're looking for. But what this does is this provides you a tool to make what is seemingly obvious actually actionable, which is something that we challenge with in today's world. And we've seen a dramatic difference in the results in these two profiles. The exciting thing for me is when I think about how much the difference is on these two profiles versus the two environments, is that as the dealership, if we were able to dial in the profiles for all of my jobs across my organization, and I can create these $50, $100, $200 swings within all of these different key jobs, I can really maximize the performance and bottom line profitability of my dealership by just making a small investment and understanding my people and jobs better.
Yeah, that's right on. And I think the second phase to that is management, right? So not only can we understand what the people need to do and how that aligns to our strategy, if we understand what drives our employees, what their needs are, we're going to better predict their behaviors, right? So introducing people data into management is crucial in this evolving marketplace. If I can understand how my associate or my colleague or my employee likes to operate, I can better coach them. I can better support them, right? And now, unfortunately, it takes a lot of time to develop that understanding without data, right? And then therefore, what we see in the management approaches today of most individuals in the automotive field is the blanket approach, or the one-size-fits-all approach to management of, hey, this is what I like to, this is how I communicate, this is my expectation, this is what I need from you to do. And what happens there is the employees, they don't want to be treated as a number. They want to feel supported through that process. They have different needs and drives than their other peers. So it's important to understand your people, because if you can understand your people, you can build better relationships. And by understanding and building these better relationships, you know what buttons to push to motivate them more effectively. And leveraging people data, you can do this in half the time to really support and understand them. And I'll go back to the F&I example here, right? In this scenario, right, most dealers would see, okay, well, I'm only going to hire people on the orange line for traditional, and I'm only going to hire people for the virtual side on the purple line. Well, that's actually the opposite to what Chris and I actually believe. What this should allow us to do is, instead of hiring one person for virtual and one person for traditional, why not allow this traditional individual or the virtual individual to stretch themselves, right? Because you'll notice the other factors are pretty similar. It's just the collaboration versus controlling factor that's different. So if I can invest time and if I can coach and support this individual into that transition to deliver virtual deals, I'm saving headcount, right? I'm also gaining an employee that's learning a new skill. So they're being challenged, which is our key factors to employee retention and increasing employee engagement. So what we challenge our dealers is not to just look at the line, right, as this is the right fit, but to use this as opportunities to stretch and coach these individuals to do more at your dealership. And I know we were going to turn it back to Amanda to see if there was any questions in there that you guys may have on the first two forces.
Yeah, so we just covered job fit and management. So if you have any questions specific to that, or of course on culture or team dynamics, which we'll get to in just a couple of minutes, please feel free to type them into the chat, and Kevin and Chris will answer away. So Kevin, here's one going back to what you were talking about, management style. With a manager who has a more traditional style, how do you equip them to adapt to this new style that you're recommending about being more coaching and collaborative focused versus the do as I say that you were mentioning earlier?
Yeah, you know, I think it's a loaded question, right? Because I think there's a lot of components into it. But I think the root cause of most individuals and most managers is just a lack of understanding, right? And it's not a lack of care or a lack of not wanting to be a great manager. It's a lack of having the tools and resources readily available to you that you can understand what your people need, right? And so that's the introduction of this science component to it, right? Is if we can introduce very easy to understand, easy data points to be widely accessible, well, now this manager has a sneak peek or an insight into what this employee actually needs to be successful. Then comes the art, right? And the art is, how do you leverage those insights? How do you leverage the data to have effective communication, to have crucial conversations if necessary? And that's where, you know, Chris and I have really focused on our coaching and support, because it's one thing to understand the science, but if we don't leverage the art with it, we're not going to win, right? And so it's the combination of art and science that I think is super important. And introducing the science and then coaching on the art, I think is the best way to approach the transition to management.
Great, thank you. And here's one. So we talk about the tools that are available. What are the tools that give us the pattern for a person? So I think that's referencing the chart that we were showing above.
Yeah, so we actually have recently partnered with a behavioral assessment provider, Predictive Index, and this tool allows us to capture the data off of a behavioral assessment and then build analytics that you will see throughout the presentation. Bob.
All right, let's do maybe one or two more. So here's one. I have job descriptions that I use for postings. How do I determine the right fit for the role based on, or beyond what's on the paper?
I would, I would say having a job description is a step in the right direction. I would argue that from my experiences, having up-to-date job descriptions is not something that most of our dealerships have. Um, the other thing is the job description is probably different across multiple levels of your organization. So how two different salespeople execute the job description is probably two different jobs. What the manager is essentially thinks the job description is one thing, and then from a GSM level. So it's all about so you're in the step in the right direction, but it's about creating alignment and agreement around what that job looks like. And there's a few different ways that you can go about doing that. But one of the easiest ways is you can assess your top performers and get their understanding of the job characteristics and come to an agreement. Then you can have your management staff go through a similar exercise where we create agreements and create profiles. And then we can align people that come through the hiring process to those particular profiles. So there's probably 3 or 4 distinct ways that you can go about creating agreement alignment. So kudos to you for having a job description on a piece of paper, but are we all on the same page of what we're looking for? And then when people are applying to our organization or a particular job, are we really doing a good job of mapping that individual's traits to what we're asking that person to do in that particular job?
Great, thanks. Let's do, since we're about halfway through, let's do one more question and then we'll jump back in. So which assessment do you feel is easiest for the dealer or dealership to use to fill positions with quality candidates?
Yeah, so I think there's, again, a little bit of a loaded question in the sense that there's multiple, right? And to say that, one assessment is better than another is, I think, an environmental based on the dealership and how they like to operate. The reason why we chose the assessment provider that we partnered with is because of the ease of use, right? In a 30-day window that most of our dealers are working in an environment that everyone moves very quickly, highly proactive, right? We want to identify a tool that we can take quickly that gives us a lot of insights and a lot of data points. And the assessment that we are leveraging, it takes about 10 minutes to complete, where the average assessment that gives the amount of data that we have typically takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. So just from a speed of use and then the reliability of the data that we get out of it, I think is crucial for the dealerships. And that's why we picked who we picked.
And maybe to piggyback on that, we looked at 13 of these in depth. Ease of use was one of the biggest factors. We found that a lot of them, you need a special, PhD degree to read them. And that's not even, how do I even take that long behavioral assessment and take action out of it? So what we wanted was, the data is complex, but how we use it in a dealership has to be quick, easy, and efficient. And most behavioral assessments are great and they're spot on, but they live in a moment of time. And the reason why we ended up going the direction we would is no, we can take that behavior assessment and then apply it to so many different stages of the life cycle of the associate, because it's not about a one-time coaching event. It's not about a one-time hiring event. It's how do we cultivate, these individuals throughout the 10 plus years that we want them in the organization. So
that's right on. Well, I'll jump back in.
So next phase, we'll talk about team and culture. So the same concepts that we talked about, job fit or manager relationship, we just want to take it up, one more level. And having high performing teams is ultimately the goal of every single organization. And, it's great when we have these individuals, we have them aligned, but when everyone comes together on a sales floor or in the service drive, right, are they coming together and are they aligning towards a common goal, or or is there conflict arising when they all come together? And those are the key interaction points. The old adage is the whole, greater than the sum of the parts. And that's really what we're trying to create with the team and culture. The good news is as we talk about with these tools, there's ways to spot problems. There are ways to proactively take action to make sure that there's harmony. And it all starts with measuring what matters. And it all starts with how we take consistent action, nudging a large group of people in the right direction on where we want them to go. And I think we have a good example of that. It's a personal example that we use that's on our team. So the tools that we use, you're able to plot them in many different directions, right? How their communication styles, how the people like to take action. but here's a priority chart and here's our team. Now you'll see the blue dots on the right side. We are a 30-person team, 17 of those people, trainers and consultants. And so we're highly external focused. So everybody on the right-hand side, a little bit more external. We have exploring up top, we have producing, and it works well for us based on the profiles. However, obviously, during the pandemic, the last 6 months or so has looked a lot different for our organization. And about a month or two in, we took had a nice conversation as a leadership team, and we wanted to make sure that we were working on the right things, that we weren't dropping the ball as a management team. And we took a step back, and through those conversations, we realized that people were missing the office, people were missing the camaraderie and some of those interaction points. And so we plotted everyone on the chart. The purple is I can actually plot my priorities as a business leader, plot my strategy. So the purple is where my strategy aligns. And if you see on the top left, part of my strategy over the last 6 months was creating this cultivating teamwork, employee experience. And I have nobody who naturally is just always drives towards that type of activity. So really had to do some searching amongst the team. And what you'll see is CH in the middle there is a newer member to our team. And said, all right, well, if this is a priority for us, then we have to create tasks and actions around how do we make sure that we're maintaining this positive, team environment, because, quite frankly, it's just not a priority for other people because they have different tasks going on. So we had a conversation with CH. What I was able to do effectively was I understand her communication style. I understanding what motivates her, not only today, but in her career development. And I was able to explain to her, why there was this gap. And while, as you can see, she's not perfectly aligned, I was able to, through personal conversation, personal motivation, and explaining our strategy, was able to ask her to stretch herself and say, hey, Corey, I know you're going to be uncomfortable here, but I need you to step up for these reasons. And so over the last 3 months, we have regular, we have creative virtual lunches. We've done virtual Jeopardy. We've done escape rooms. We've done all these activities in an effort for one individual to kind of fill this void created by the situation that we are currently in. So, as we keep alluding to, it's taking science, but it's really how do we take all this complex science, make it super usable for business leaders to make solid decisions very, very quickly. And this is something that's come in handy a lot over the last few months for us.
Yeah, and I think what's important to note on this is throughout all of our research, the number two reason why people leave a job is they're not learning or they're not growing, right? Those typically are the top two reasons. Manager obviously is up there as well. And so this gave Chris an opportunity to really challenge and support an associate and learn a new skill set, right? And learn a new trait that eventually is going to help them in their career. That's going to help JM&A as an organization because now this individual has exposure to a cultivation project where maybe she never would have been given that opportunity before. And I also think it's crucial that now that we're agreed to this project and to our strategy, we all know our roles in those strategies. And we can leverage our natural strengths to really drive the strategy to the finish line to ensure that we achieve the results and the outcomes that we're looking for. And I think that is really important to go back to this slide to understand that today in the dealership landscape, talent is a challenge, right? We can't deny that based off of the numbers that we see from a turnover perspective, based off of the amount of money our dealerships and our dealers are spending on an annual basis, upwards of $500,000, the average dealer is spending on talent. So it is a problem that needs to be addressed today. And we believe we are highly competent to address it in a unique way, leveraging data and a talent optimization framework. And I think the dealerships that will continue to grow and succeed in the future landscape, and I have no idea what that's going to look like, but if COVID is a precursor to what's ahead of us, right, there's going to be a lot of transformation. And the dealers that are going to succeed in that transformation will have talent strategies that align to their business strategy.
And looking at it, just to drive that point home, maybe at the macro level, we know that consolidation's a thing, with dealerships purchasing each other, some growing, some expanding, some contracting. There are less franchise dealerships in today's world than there were 5 years ago, and we don't think that trend's going to go away. So whether you're trying to own your market, you want to maximize profitability, I'm going to purchase a dealership and I need a succession plan to make sure that I'm prepared for scaling my business. I need to future-proof my business. I want to pick a digital retailing tool, and make sure that I have the right people, taking on those tasks that's going to be best for what I'm trying to go. There are dealerships that are going to win over the next few years. And based on our research, it's the organizations that focus on optimizing their talent that are going to separate themselves from the pack. And that's really why we've built this program out is we want to be there to help. We want to be there to assist. We want to help the JM&A network really be the ones that capture the opportunity that's opening up in the marketplace over the next few years.
Before we jump to Q&A, I want to let you guys know that this is a serious opportunity, and JM&A is very excited to partner with you guys through this process. And because you guys have taken the time today to listen to us, and we still have some more questions to go through, we want to make sure that we offer you a free consult and behavioral assessment. So I know Amanda is going to throw the link in the chat. If you have your phone, you can take a picture of the QR code. It will directly link you to the link to sign up for that free consult. And we encourage you to take advantage of this, because what we've seen is if you can start to understand your team and your direct reports, it's going to only support you in your upcoming initiatives or strategy sessions. And obviously, if you want more information, you can take a look at our Dealer Talent Services page with the link below, or obviously reach out to your JM&A rep. And then I know I see some more questions up there, so obviously we'll open it up for Q&A.
Yeah, and I just want to pause for just a minute to give everyone an opportunity to fill out that form that we put in the chat. It's just a few quick questions so that we can get in touch with you and learn a little bit more about how we can support you. So it takes maybe 30 seconds to fill out, so we'd appreciate you doing that if you're interested in talking with our team more about how we can help you in this avenue. All right, so let's get to a couple questions while everybody's filling out the form. How do you look at the culture of a dealership and start to improve it? Where do you begin? This is a big question. Who in the dealership should be working on this and managing the process?
Yeah, and so I think the first thing to do is a theme to what we've talked about is you have to understand what's the root cause, right? What are your employees, what are your associates saying? And you need to diagnose before we can execute any action items, right? Because the challenge with executing on gut without data is you're probably making a bad decision, right? Or it's probably not as important to driving culture. So I would say the first step is to understand where you're at. And you can do that through, a number of different ways. But the way that we leverage it in our tool is, an employee survey, right? And what we identify is what are the core root challenges to engagement. And then from there, we determine actionable items to focus on. Now, if we already have an employee assessment completed or an employee engagement survey completed, I would say the first step I would do is take a look at our jobs, right? How do your jobs align with your business strategy, right? Are they clearly defined, right? Are you hiring the right people to execute on those jobs? Job fit is a leading indicator to disengagement because people aren't learning, people aren't growing, people aren't being challenged if they're in jobs that don't fit their natural drives and behaviors.
All right, thank you. So here's another one. They work with a larger group that has a strong culture, but finding that within the group individual stores, there's a subculture. So how do we understand that working with those teams and placing people correctly?
Yeah, I think, again, going back to the data in defining jobs per store, right? Because every store has different leadership and has different fingerprints on it. And so making those adjustments based off of that store, those top performers, those high potentials, understanding why those individuals are successful, and then creating specific job targets or cultural targets for that store are crucial, with the underlining goal of keeping the core values of the organization the same.
And just to add, subcultures are okay and subcultures are fine. You're going to find that within every large organization. But as a global organization, there should be certain guardrails and non-negotiables that you establish across your entire organization that you can measure against to make sure that everyone's embracing certain aspects of their subcultures, but living up to the core values of the entire organization.
Great. Thank you, guys. A couple more just came in. So let's see. One participant is saying, we've taken several swings at a more structured approach like this. It takes a global commitment in the company. How do you shift that? Departments are moving quickly, and committing to this takes a ton of discipline. So what would you say to that?
And I would go through with how we structured this. We live in 30-day windows within our dealer world, and developing a culture, which I know is interest of a lot of people on this call today, takes time, it takes consistency. And that's very difficult because the people that are successful in dealerships typically are fast movers or drivers or more assertive, and they don't always take a deep breath and think about the long-term vision. So the way that we structured this program is, the actions do fall in the dealership. We can't create a culture and environment for you, but what we can do is we can manage the program from afar. We can help you set direction. We can help to make sure that there's action set up, that there's accountability in place. And we look at it as like a 3-to-1 ratio on how much work, we want to work 3 hours on the back end to make sure that you're having the efficient hour-long interaction with your associates. So that's our best way. We recognize that, some of these concepts, employee surveys have been around for years, but how do we take action and organize around it? That's specifically on our thought process on how we built this program is how you operate your business, how you run your day-to-day lives. It has to fit and enable within that.
And I would just add one thing to what Chris mentioned is be patient. This culture doesn't happen overnight, right? Culture takes time. Culture takes consistent effort. And to think that it can be adjusted or put a time frame on it adjusting, you're setting yourself up for failure. It's going to take time, and you got to be patient, which is a hard thing for dealers to do, right? And we understand that. And I think the patience and understanding that it's a long game is the key to creating a consistent culture.
Okay. And I think this next question is an extension of what you both were just talking about. How do you measure culture, and what, broadly speaking, drives the culture of an organization?
Yeah, so I think how you measure culture is through however you define your culture, right? And so, here at JM&A, we have the 3 C's and the 1A, right? And so that's how we define our culture, and we measure that in a number of different ways. So I think if you have a vision, if you have a mission statement, if you have core values, those need to be crucial to how you determine how you're going to measure your culture. Once you've defined that, then it can become a little bit more objective from a data perspective, but there's still a ton of art that's involved in building and maintaining that culture. But I think the first thing you need to do is develop what is the culture that you are trying to achieve and stay consistent with it.
Great. And here's another one. Is there something we can look for that's an indicator that someone would be good at internet sales versus being on the floor? For this, we're referencing hierology here. Is there a difference between this service and what hierology does?
There is, and so it's a great question. And so hierology focuses on attraction, right? And so hierology focuses on job boards and creating job descriptions that are going to attract the best people to the dealership. They do have an assessment tool that takes a long time to complete. But once the individual's in the seat, hierology, focuses on other HR related things, payroll, all those variety of things. We pick up where hierology leaves off, right? So everything from defining the job that you actually need to hire to training and developing that individual are all crucial components to what we're doing. And actually, we've partnered with Hireology, and our technology has a free integration into Hireology. So if you're leveraging Hireology from an attraction perspective, we've asked Hireology and the senior leadership of Hireology to build an integration at no cost to our dealers to integrate the two programs.
Great, thank you. And it looks like we've got one more. We do have a few more minutes left for questions before we close it out. So if you have anything else, please feel free to type it into the chat. Anything that you've got specific to Dealer Talent Services. One that just came in is JM&A. How are we working with PI, with Predictive Index?
Yeah, so so Predictive Index is interesting. They've been around for a very long time, and 90% of their revenue comes from partners, right? Certified partners of their program. And so Chris and I have a very good relationship with the executive management team of Predictive Index, and we've actually become a partner of theirs to sell their technology and then layer in all the coaching and support to the automotive industry. So one of the challenges that PI identified as a challenge to breaking into automotive is they didn't have a partner that knew automotive, right? And they had outside individuals that kind of dabbled in automotive, but also in manufacturing and all that. And one of the things that Predictive Index was highly attractive to partner with us was our expertise, our 40 plus years of history, our data, our understanding of what drives profitability and performance at a dealership. And so we thought that it made a lot of sense, and so did they, to partner. And so we're an exclusive provider of their services, and we're able to sell their technology and therefore provide a lot of additional support and services, understanding and leveraging that data.
How much time should a senior team devote to talent planning? Is it weekly? Is it quarterly? What's the
Yeah, so this is funny. I actually just read something on this. And it's a question that you have to ask yourself, right? Is how much of your time or how much of your success relies on people, right? So in a sales environment, right, you can have the best technology, you can have the best process, but if you don't have salespeople to sell it, you're not making any money, right? And so it's your sales organization, it's probably 80% of your time is people oriented, right? So then a senior management team should spend a good amount of time understanding what their people need to drive their business strategy, right? I think Mike Tyson says it best, right? Everybody has a strategy till they get hit in the face, right? And so it's easy to create the strategy. It's the people that are throwing the punches, right? And so you have to be able to know how to swing and miss with those employees. And so if you have your revenue and your strategies to be driven through people, I would recommend spending at least 1 hour to 2 hours a week on your people as a senior leadership team. I didn't think I would get the Mike Tyson quote in today, but I did.
I'm so glad you got the opportunity.
For you, I know that.
So we're getting some more questions coming in, and I do want to be mindful of time, so we'll get to a couple more. Is there an assessment tool that partner dealers can use to help determine the aptitudes of potential promotions from sales to F&I?
Yeah, I think the toolkit that we're talking about covers, all jobs. So if you're looking for, one of the interesting things that we found, right, is whether it's rotating people around or, we had an interesting conversation, onboarding, one of our dealers around, we assessed everybody in the store and we were looking at sales profiles versus service profiles, and they were different. And we were able to compare service people to sales and sales to service. So there was actually, one individual in the sales department that everyone loved, great culture guy, and was this medium to low performer in sales. And what we found during the process is we could easily compare that to a service person, and there was a service spot open. So what they did is they took that person that didn't want to lose, moved them over a role, and found much greater success over the last few months. So the use cases on this approach, on how you can use it to, rotate people around, identify new jobs, redefine, promote, all over the place. It's endless. And it's something that we actually highly recommend is during this process, is that you're constantly looking at your entire portfolio of jobs compared to people to make sure that we're appropriate aligning the best that we can.
And I think what's even, to add on to Chris's point, what we're super excited about is as we identify high performers in a specific position, and we believe that these are going to be individuals that we're going to groom into management or into F&I or into another position, we actually can help you create coaching guides for that individual as they make the migration to that job. So an example is one of the dealer partners that we're working with likes to take sales professionals and move them into F&I. So if we've identified sales professionals 6 to 8 months before the transition actually takes place, over the next 6 to 8 months before they move into F&I, we can provide specific coaching and support around how they can be more effective in the job that they're going to move to. So there's a tremendous amount of value in understanding your individual's natural drives and needs because you can better predict their behaviors on the job.
Well, this has been fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for answering questions, and thank you everyone for asking questions.
Great questions, by the way.
So in addition to everything that we talked about today, you can find a lot more on Insider, including a video from Kevin on growth mindset training. There's also resources on sales, fixed ops, training, and a lot more. And of course, be on the lookout for our next office hours come October. And if you have any more questions about Dealer Town Services, or if you didn't get a chance to sign up yet, check your email. We'll send this recording tomorrow, along with those links as well. And you can see that in your follow-up email, and the team will be happy to talk to you more one-on-one. And that's it for us. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Excellent. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.